Actually, Texas is a great place to live. My short and entertaining lecture for you today is not based on hard science. It is based on the science of communication and interaction between human beings. And it's called Hospitality in the Medical Spa, a Missing Link. Because all the science in the world, which is fantastic, and I love science, is important. But unless we remember the human side of medicine and dermatology and dentistry and everything related to fitness and wellness, we really are missing the boat. So my name is Patti Biro, and as I shared with you, I do live in the great state of Texas. In fact, I live just 70 miles up the road in Fredericksburg. Now, I heard last night everybody had a wild time on the Riverwalk. Is that right? Some people did. Isn't it gorgeous? Texas is, if you have not been to Texas before, just as a little Texas fact, Texas has actually still retained its permission to secede from the United States of America. There's only one small provision. They have to pay their portion of the national debt. So we don't think it'll happen. Anyway, I am delighted to be with you today, and I think it's a very, very important topic to think about what your level of hospitality is, whether you are involved in research, working with research subjects, or you are actually treating patients. And sometimes it's called customer service, sometimes it's called bedside manner. It doesn't matter what we call it, but that interaction is absolutely critical in a number of ways. And the definition of hospitality, I think, is very, very important to consider, because it has to do with not just is it there, is it not there, are you hospitable, are you not hospitable, but more importantly, what is the quality of the hospitality that you offer? And, you know, some of our synonyms for it: warmth, cordiality, a welcoming demeanor, friendliness. These are very often things that are totally forgotten, not just in the medical spa, but I spent a number of years working at the University of Washington Child Development and Mental Retardation Center. I think there was a real opportunity there for improving everyone's hospitality skills and really making things a better experience for not only the youngest patients, but also their families. So, stop and think for a moment when you hear the term hospitality. In fact, let's just do this. Everyone close their eyes. And I want you to get a picture in your mind of a place where you believe hospitality is delivered. Because it's more than one place. You might be thinking of a fabulous resort. And I do have to tell you, usually the weather in Texas is nicer than it is today. Hospitality happens in hotels like the very one that you are staying in. And certainly we have expectations of hospitality that go up as the stars go up. A 3-star hotel, a 4-star hotel, a 5-star hotel. We also have expectations for hospitality when we take trips. I recently came back from a safari in Africa, and that was hospitality that was at the 6-star level. But also, too, when you go out and dine, when you take your lunch break today, you're going to have an expectation of a certain level of hospitality. So why do we not, as consumers, expect that when we interact with medical professionals? The reality is, especially here in the United States, we absolutely do, especially when it comes to services that we pay for out of our pocket. Now, I do a lot of work in the medical spa. Is there anyone here that works in a medical or dental spa? Do you know what our U.S. definition of a medical spa is? Okay, a medical spa, just to make it perfectly clear, a medical spa is a licensed medical office where aesthetic and cosmetic procedures are performed generally in a cash and carry environment because these are optional services. Whether it's Fraxel, whether it's Botox, whether it's Voluma, Juvederm, other kinds of injections, body shaping, body contouring, those are all things that unfortunately insurance does not cover, but are provided in an alternative kind of medical setting that is called a medical spa. And actually medical spas, I haven't found a country yet that doesn't have at least one medical spa. So they are, by definition, because they are what I call cash and carry. Cash and carry simply means that I'm paying for that Botox, Juvederm, teeth whitening for my colleague in the back who is a dentist. I am paying for that service out of my own pocket. So there's even a higher level of an expectation of hospitality when I'm paying for it. Would you not agree? When you pay for something out of your pocket, don't your expectations go up? Absolutely. And especially in this setting where people are very, very concerned about improving their overall aesthetic appearance for whatever reasons. And these are, I mean, I love these pictures because I think this is a good representation of where medical spas are going, and realistically across the country, they look more like 4-star hotels. Absolutely. And there is a whole subgroup of dental spas. Have you heard of dental spas before? It's where aesthetic and cosmetic dental procedures take place in a very relaxing, therapeutic, expensive center. Now, this is actually one of my clients. I live literally 70 miles up the road in what's called the Texas Hill Country. And so this is actually one of my clients. This is Dr. Elizabeth McCrae from Bernie. And her staff, this is on Halloween, and they do a lot of parties. One of the reasons that they do parties and special events is to create a very welcoming opportunity for people who may not know Dr. McCrae. They may not know all of the wonderful laser techniques that she has at her disposal for improving aesthetic appearance. And hospitality is very, very important to them. Now, here in the United States, and I'll venture to guess literally across the world, medical spas, just like physician offices, just like dental offices, are having some very fierce competition. Now, the primary reason this is happening in the States is that every general practice physician, dermatology, internal medicine, they're all looking for an opportunity to bring in more services that are cash only and not dependent on insurance. So there has been a huge growth of medical spas in the last few years. Also, too, we have an aging population that very much wants to hold on to their looks. Now, the reality is that the medical model has not been driven by hospitality. And so venturing into hospitality is really getting into totally new territory for many medical offices. And because of the internet, because we carry our phones around with us, because we talk to other people and we read online reviews, customers that are shopping for medical spa services are a whole lot more sophisticated than they used to be. There are magazines such as New Beauty that basically are consumer driven but are totally focused on all of the available procedures for the modern medical spa. And hey, there's the internet. People are certainly reading reviews, doing their own background research, looking at their options, and they basically come in with, I want Botox, I want Juvederm, let's talk about Fraxel, I want to do body sculpting, etc., etc., etc. So we've established now that in the modern medical spa, and I'm going to venture to say every single dermatology office, people come with a set of expectations. They want more than just great health care. They have an expectation of a level of service, and I'll call it guest experience. Just like when you go to a really great restaurant, you know, from the moment you walk in the door, the lights, the linen, the flowers, the music, the way you're greeted, the way you're taken to your table, all of those things are all part of that restaurant experience for you. They're probably the things you put in your online review or you share with friends and family. Oh, I went to restaurant du jour and I had this great experience. The new words in medical spa are really about being proactive and mindful. And as I mentioned, you know, here in the States, we do have an aging population. What we're finding, though, in dermatology and in the med spa, and for procedures like Botox and Fraxel and other kinds of body sculpting, there is a whole growing group of people who are doing those techniques and procedures almost as a preventative measure. Rather than ever having the 11s, they're never going to let them develop. Rather than ever having crow's feet, they will address it both topically and with injections. So, here's the good news. Medical spa procedures are increasing not only in the United States, but literally across the world. The flip side of that, and if you're watching any U.S. TV while you're here for this conference, you are going to see a huge number of advertisements for in-home devices. Light therapy, personal microdermabrasion machines, laser hair removal, products like the No-No, which I know are heavily marketed in South America because I was there last summer. And so those things, I think, are putting even more pressure on our modern medical spa because people are going, well, if I can do it at home, I can do laser hair removal at home, if I can do microderm at home, why do I need to go see a professional? And I think where the rubber meets the road, that's a phrase we like to use, is that hospitality makes the difference. It's part of not only your background, your knowledge, your skills, your ability, and superior grade equipment, but also the fact that you offer hospitality. And as I mentioned, online reviews, which are, and I'm not sure these are present all over the country, like Yelp, Yahoo, Google, Twitter reviews. The reality is that a few bad reviews will cost you patience. Patients pay attention, especially when it's that cash and carry phenomenon, and they're always watching for deals, specials, monthly specials, Groupons, etc. There's a whole new phenomenon, I don't know if this has gone around the globe yet, of a Botox boutique. Has anybody heard of a Botox boutique? Okay, Botox boutique is a new variation of the medical spa where a procedure such as Botox, Juvederm, or Voluma is actually delivered in another office, which is not a medical spa, or in a what we call a pop-up. So perhaps it's being delivered on Wednesday, second Wednesday of every month at a fitness center. Totally new way of delivering totally optional aesthetic services. And what's happening on the day spa side of things is that day spas want to look more like medical spas. Medical spas need to work on hospitality so that there is some meeting in the middle. Now, there is a very, very large, it's not the one right here in this neighborhood, but there is an enormous chain of fitness centers. And they have been hiring medical professionals to provide medical spa services in all of their larger fitness facilities. How about that? Laser, body sculpting, injections. And that is their new model. Every time they build a new fitness center, it will have a medical spa within it. So here's the bottom line. Because this is a service that I purchase from my own pocket, I have a lot of power in the decision-making process of who I choose to go to, who I don't choose to go to. And basically, what people are saying is that unless you deliver what I'm looking for, I will go elsewhere because I have choices. And when I describe guest experience, think of it just like that restaurant experience. It's really everything. It's not just your bedside manner. It's not just your communication. It's also things such as products that you recommend and the way that you recommend them, as well as other perhaps fitness or wellness recommendations that you make, the quality of those products that you recommend, and in fact, the whole experience from the time the patient walks through the door. Now, I'm going to give you, if you don't remember anything else about meeting me today, and my cards are in the back and they're bright orange, and I think if you take one, you will remember meeting me. But this is what the one thing, if you can only remember one thing, and you know, adults can really only remember about 3 things at a time. There is such a huge difference when we start to use a term like guest rather than patient. And in fact, if you read any of the articles that I write for different journals, I always use guest. Part of it is that psychologically in our mind, we treat guests differently. And I am really challenging you to stop calling patients patients and call them guests. And when you start that at the top with yourselves, you will see how that trickles down to every single person who works with you and for you. And that idea of guest versus a patient is really the most critical part of this guest experience. So these are some things that you can do when you return home after partying on the river walk and enjoying San Antonio and tasting good Texas food. You can go home and assess what I call your HQ, your hospitality quotient. The first thing, and if you don't think this is happening in hospitals and clinics, how many people work in hospital settings? How many people work in university-related research settings? A few people. How about independent or private practice? Okay. Mystery shopping. If you don't think this is happening at the university and the hospital level, it is and it has. Mystery shopping is where a person who has no relationship with that institution or office or facility evaluates the level of hospitality and how they were treated. So the very first step is mystery shopping. Because you may think you really know what's going on in your clinic. You may think you know what's happening in your office. And the reality is the experience for the guest could be completely different. And so mystery shopping is a way to actually get some unbiased reviews so that you have a better picture of what's actually going on. Also, too, I do a lot of mystery shopping for medical spas in Texas and around the country. And these are things that come up again and again and again and again and again. They're kind of calluses on the hospitality angle of medical spas. People complain about being rushed, not being listened to, not directed to the website for further information or to learn more about you and your services. One of the things that happens frequently is that people come in for an initial visit and they disappear. And that happens because people are not appropriately guided through a rebooking system and then invited to come back to the practice again. And other common complaints are, and this is very practical, first time you come to somebody's office, I don't care what city you are in the world, don't you need directions? You know, sometimes what's on your phone is completely wrong. And things that people are always looking for are quality products, products that I can't just buy on the internet. You know, a great range of effective treatment, good consultation, and most importantly, the opportunity to have my questions answered. Now, I'm sure this doesn't happen anyplace else but in the States, but gossip is a big problem. Would you all agree? It's unfortunately part of human nature. Here, we certainly have very strong HIPAA guidelines around confidentiality, and those are really, really important to follow because here in the States, they have important guidelines for how you can market your services. And if you're in a cash and carry economy, you can't just hang a sign out and expect people to come to you. You actually do have to do some marketing. A real common concern that I hear is that I had my evaluation, I did my Botox or whatever it was, and I never had anybody follow up with me. Now think about this. I told you, you know, if you use that analogy of a guest that comes to your home, if somebody came to your house for dinner and they came over, you welcomed them in, you took them on a tour, you had a lovely dinner. When they left, you said, please come back. Well, if you didn't hear from that person in a couple of weeks, wouldn't you write, call, email, text, find out what happened to them? Well, that needs to be a component of your hospitality model. And the reality is that people who are unhappy, they usually don't complain unless they are people who write reviews on one of the Yelp sites or review sites or Yahoo. But people who complain to other people. What they do to you in your practice is simply go away. And it's not enough to just have one great experience. What you want to do is build a relationship with your guests so that they see you as a trusted advisor for information, products, for procedures, for totally effective services. And you know, those rave reviews, those 5-star reviews, they absolutely are the best marketing that you can do. And when people come back and become part of your practice or part of your medical spa or part of your hospital-based spa, people who stay with you, retained customers, spend more money over the life cycle of that customer. And that's really important because it costs 6 times more money to get one new guest to come through the door than it does to retain a current guest. So I call these some touch points. And you can use that analogy of the restaurant or you can use that analogy of the guest. Hospitality touch points happen at 3 important times before that appointment. So you want to give people things like directions, tell them where they need to park. If there are any complimentary services, offer them a beverage, just like you would do when a guest comes to your home. Now, one of my great bugaboos, and this actually happened to me when I was mystery shopping, very, very high-end dermatology office over in the University of Texas San Antonio area, located very close to the hospital. Well, I made this appointment. I went in. I almost left because the waiting room was, the TV was blaring, the magazines were old, the furniture was beat up. It was awful. So then someone came to get me for my appointment, and this gruff-looking person said, "She's ready for you." I thought, if this were a restaurant, I'd be hitting the door. It only got worse because then I went through a door and there was a beautiful surgical suite, lovely gray and black and white photographs, because this particular physician was doing a lot of body makeover work. And the contrast was so shocking between the hospitality on this end and what I had experienced in the waiting room. But how guests are addressed absolutely matters. It sets the stage for the entire interaction. And on that same note, like I said, it was close to the hospital. Okay. They neglected to tell me it was paid parking and it would not be credited by the physician's office. Worse yet, they forgot to tell me that that gatekeeper only took cash. I had to turn around, go back into the parking lot, walk to one of the hospital offices to find an ATM machine, and come back to pay cash to get out. It was just about the worst hospitality. I did not write a favorable review. So that first visit absolutely sets the stage for all of your subsequent interactions. And here's one of the most important things you can do hospitality-wise. And I think this goes for research as well, because I've participated in many, many research projects. Thank that guest for coming. Thank that participant for participating in your research study. It just shocks me that very often physicians will come into an examination room and never take the courtesy of introducing themselves. I mean, what a miss. You would never do that. You would never do that to a guest in your home. If you were introducing other family members, you would not miss that moment. The other touch point, so if the first touch point is the first visit and before the first visit, the next touch point would be, oh, it looks like my picture moved a little bit, is absolutely during the visit. And your whole objective there, hospitality-wise, is to make it as pleasant an experience as possible. Offer consultation, education, explanations, additional recommendations. And then the third portion of that is that when you are having that guest check out from your office, and if you think of a hotel concierge, they take care of everything, both on the check-in side and also on the exiting side. And they ask you things like, may we follow up with you? Is it okay if I send you a survey? We'd like to get some feedback from you. Saying goodbye is very important, and it's part of that transition because, especially if you are in solo practice, you want that person to come back. And so you need to double check their information, their email, their telephone number, all of those things, and say thank you. Thank you for coming. We enjoyed having you with us today. And I'm a big believer in the personal touch. I don't know when the last time you got a personal handwritten thank you note, because everybody just sends emails these days. But if you want to make an impact on somebody, send a personal note. I will tell you that my personal medical spa that I use, the reason that I go to her is that after my first visit, she wrote me a personal note, included several of her cards, and thanked me for coming to see her. And I think what I'm talking about in a nutshell is creating a culture of service and not just a one-sided transaction. And it really is about the guest being first, second, and third. Don't discount little things. They really matter. Take time, slow down, and listen. Because I think when we give each other a chance to communicate, you will hear a whole lot more about how to better serve that guest. And I like to say that it is guest first every single time. And You know, if you do get a bad review, don't just ignore it. Don't fight with that person. A fun thing that I like to do, and this sounds a little wicked, is that I do like to read bad reviews on Yelp and on Google. And this was actually from a dermatology practice. Can everybody read it? Can you see it at the back of the room, or do I need to read it for you? During a recent visit, I mentioned being interested in a laser treatment. So Dr. So-and-so told me he always does it himself, that a consultation wasn't needed, and to just go ahead and schedule. So when this patient guest arrived, he had just simply Xeroxed off a bunch of stuff, copied a bunch of stuff from the internet, did not do the procedure, charged the guest a consultation fee, which she was now warned about, and then told her that she would have to come back again and have that procedure done by a nurse. Needless to say, I'm sure she never went back, but that is a real review that I copied for you. That kind of review is definitely going to hurt that person's practice. So I always say focus on your front door, because that's really where hospitality starts, and that first impression is so critical. And if you don't have a hospitality program, and I don't care whether this is a research center, private dermatology office, hospital-based spa, you need a hospitality program, because a hospitality program is only as good as how well the person at the top is trained and how well the newest, youngest, lowest ranking member of your team is trained. So I absolutely love this quote. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. And hospitality isn't just in the words that you say, it's really all about attitude. So I challenge you as I leave you today to explore further lots of interesting scientific and theoretical information. That while that is very, very important, we can't forget the human side of things. And we really need to make sure our relationship is guest first. So thank you very much. It's been my pleasure to spend some time with you this morning. This is how to connect with me or pick up my card at the back. Thank you.